Hey, good afternoon, friends of Loma Linda University Church. I'm joined here by my lovely wife and daughter, Petra, and we're going to have some guests here today. So you're going to be in a treat for many new people. So today you're going to be seeing a few of my other friends as well, and I'll introduce them in a moment. But I just want to tell you, thank you so much for viewing, watching us today. If you are tuning in right now, we'd love to see where you're coming from. So type in that chat box, I'm watching from this place. And then also, we'd love for you to tell us who is one of your favorite authors. So if you can type that in the box, who's one of your favorite authors or one of your favorite movies that impacted you spiritually? Today, we're going to also just ask you, would you share this with someone right now? If you're on YouTube, copy that link and send it to a friend. If you're watching on Facebook, just click that share button so that your friends and family might be blessed by this conversation. So right now, I'm going to invite some of my friends to join me here, colleagues in ministry and their families as well. So come on board, Emily and Josh and Tommy.
Hello.
What's up, guys? So why don't each of you maybe tell us a little bit, who are you? Tell us a little about yourselves. What are you doing here at Loma Linda University Church?
Yeah, I'm Pastor Josh, and I'm the contemporary worship pastor here at Loma Linda University Church. And this is my wife.
We recently got married here, and I actually work in Loma Linda University Medical Center, so the medical center portion, as a transplant social worker.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
My name's Tommy. I work for the Anthem team, so I work for Josh, the church. Originally from Seattle, so it's great. Yeah, so it's awesome.
Hey, and now, Tommy, tell us, where were you before this, and what were you doing?
I was a pastor in the Seattle area, so Auburn specifically, if you know the area. So yeah, I was a pastor there, and then recently moved down here. So.
And now, tell us about your last name. Tell us about your last name. What's your cultural heritage?
Oh, Tamale'a. I'm Samoan, so my dad's from the island of Samoa.
Wow.
Immigrated here, when he was a kid. So.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. And now I want to also give Elena an opportunity to tell us a little about yourself.
Hi, I'm Elena. I'm Pastor Philip's wife, clearly. I'm also a resident physician at the hospital, the Loma Linda University Hospital. And I was a student on campus for a number of years. I still feel like a student on campus. I was a medical student here at Loma Linda. So this is a place that we have certainly invested deeply into and love very much. So
Yeah. And now I want to make a tie here. So Elena, where are you from originally?
I was born in British Columbia.
And we got another thing over here.
Wow.
Josh, where are you from, bro? I know you're connected here.
No.
So I was actually born in Newfoundland.
Oh.
You probably have no idea where that is, but that's the eastern island in Canada. And then, but I was born in Newfoundland, but spent most of my life growing up in British Columbia. So BC is really home for me too. So.
That's awesome. And now, Emily, people might not know a little bit about your kind of ethnic kind of mix. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, I actually noticed also in the comments, but so my mom is Peruvian and my dad is white. So I'm biracial, and I was born in Spokane, Washington. Sadly, never been to Peru, but we definitely grew up in that kind of culture around my grandparents, helped raise me and things like that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it.
You know what I'm realizing is I think everyone except Philip is kind of tied to the Pacific Northwest. I'm from British Columbia, but I grew up most of my life in Washington. So shout out to Seattle.
Yeah.
All of us are kind of connected there, so that's cool.
Yeah, that's just not my home. I kind of moved all over. I came to the States in 1989. I'm originally from former Yugoslavia. I say that because my mom's Croatian, my dad is Serbian, and I was born in Bosnia. And my dad wanted to pursue education and pastoral ministry a little bit more here in the U.S. And so we ended up kind of going all over the place, Ohio and Michigan, Illinois, Colorado. And then wait, time out. I did spend time.
I was going to say.
West. Yes.
Yeah, you were there.
That's where we met.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
You know what, Phil? You know what they say, right? West is best, right?
Oh man.
That is true.
Oh boy. Well, hey guys, why don't we say hi to some of our viewers? We have a ton of people kind of tuning in, so why don't we all kind of just take a moment, just go through here. We'll just give a shout out to people. So I see Marion Fisher. Hello and happy Sabbath from Redlands. Hi, Marion.
I think she said hi back.
Oh, good.
I wanted to shout out Elmer La Torre. I think that's his name. He said he's originally from Peru, so that's pretty cool. And you probably know my mom because it's Adventist is a small world, so over there especially. So that is pretty cool.
Emily, I think one of your family members commented.
Who's
You're watching from Spokane,
related?
Washington.
Oh,
Sylvia.
my mother.
That's your there you go.
Mama G.
Hey, that's awesome. And I got my own mom here, Alajay Kamilosavljevic. Hi, Mom and Dad. You're watching.
Say hi, Becca. Hi,
Aw.
Becca.
Yeah.
I'm
Michael
gonna text
Brownfield.
my parents to hop on the chat now.
Yeah.
I don't know if you left out.
Josh, text your mom and dad to make sure they're watching.
There
Right?
we go.
Canadian border's still closed, so I think their internet's still closed to America too. So can't get on to the COVID yet. So
Oh man. Well, let's say hi to a few more people here. Why don't we all take a turn?
what's up, David? David Smith. He says Adventists run amazing camp meetings in both Newfoundland and Hope, BC. Yes, Hope,
This
BC.
is true.
You want an amazing camp meeting? Go to Hope, BC. Definitely beautiful.
Or Loma Linda. Or Loma Linda.
One is good too. You know that.
Hey, Jack Cornwall from Olympia, another Pacific
Oh, yeah.
Northwester.
I was
That's
there not too long
awesome.
ago.
Uh,
Yakima. There you go. Karen
yeah.
from Yakima.
Yeah.
Nice.
Who else do we got? We got Goldwyn. Hello from Adelanto, and Ben Carson is my favorite author. Nice.
Nice.
That's great.
He was here not too long ago.
That's right. That's right.
Not too long ago. It's awesome.
JB from Sparks, Nevada. Welcome. So glad you're here.
Say hi to Tasha Lewis.
Oh, someone just typed in the chat from Peru. Valeria. I don't know how to say
There
that.
you go.
There you go.
That's so cute.
Valeria Principe. I think I said that right. Margaret Lagos. Raised in Chile, born in the Straits of Magellan. Parents traveled with ADRA. That's awesome.
Wow.
Nice.
That is awesome.
Hey, and Joseph Mann from the Pacific Northwest saying hi from Port Townsend.
Oh, yes.
Oh, there you go.
Way to hold it down, Joseph.
That's great. That's great. Well, why don't we jump into some of the questions here right now, and we'll start with kind of this book question. So, what's one of your favorite books or films that impacted you spiritually or just in general in life? I'd love to hear from you guys.
So this is a book that probably a lot of people already know about, but it is Love Does by Bob Goff. Simple title and also just simple concept. He talks about how he has these crazy adventures and crazy stories that he goes through. And somehow he always ties it back to how we can love other people. And that is why, love is an action word instead of just saying it or, exercising it that way, actually going out and doing something. And so I love it because, there are times where devotionals can get a little dry at times. And so for a fun, family worship night, and this is a great book that we've been reading. And it's simple, I think it's 18, 20 chapter book, but it really just embodies what God wants us to do and his mission for us, just to love other people and to actually go out and do it.
That's awesome. Tommy, Elena, Josh, you got anything in particular, a movie or a book that impacted you that you've really enjoyed? I think of a few that kind of really spoke to me. One of them is, it's actually a story of a young man. It's called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And I don't know if I necessarily recommend all of his books, but this one in particular, it's a story of a boy who goes on a journey to find exactly what he'd hoped for. And then he ends up, I'm going to give away the book a little bit.
Yeah, don't tell us the ending.
No,
I won't spoil it, but
No spoilers.
If you haven't read the book, turn off now. You got to leave.
but it really was a meaningful book because it really was a story that just kind of spoke to me when I was a kind of a young adult, early 20s, and I was just kind of seeking and looking for life and wondering, God, where do I find what I'm looking for? And ends up kind of circling back around, and it's like, no, you were always so near it. And I think of that in my own story. I was a pastor's kid, and I wondered, God, where are you calling me? What should I do? And I realized I was surrounded by ministry and mission, and God had always had this call in the back of my head, Philip, this is kind of what I'm planting for you. But I went all over seeking to find what I thought would bring me happiness, and I realized, man, it was right there. And when I kind of accepted Jesus and accepted that call that he gave me, life was never the same. So that story kind of spoke to me in that way, but it's not necessarily a naturally spiritual book, but it's more of a storyline.
That's good.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good book.
Yeah.
Nice.
Anyone for you guys? A book or a movie?
I can't think of a movie. I think most recently a book that I've been reading, I forget his first name, but it's by someone Boyd, The Crucifixion of the Warrior God. And it's more of an academic book, but it's this really neat blend between the Old Testament, fire and brimstone, and kind of more of what we see in the New Testament. And it's a wonderful, wonderful book, 2-volume set, but it's pretty good.
Gregory Boyd, I think.
Gregory Boyd, there it is.
Yeah, that's an awesome book. That's good.
Yeah, a book I read recently was You Are What You Love by James Smith. Really good book. I think, Phil, you've read that one, right, Phil? Yeah, great book. Just talking about spiritual habits, how worship transforms us and kind of forms our loves. So I won't spoil it beyond that, but really.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
There are a few films that I've watched and books. So I don't know if any of you want to chime in anymore, but Lena, you have one that comes to mind?
Yeah. Particularly like a really formative time in my life when I was in my senior year of high school and just kind of pondering the trajectory of my life and where I was going to go, what career I was going to pursue and whatnot. The books, one in particular, but by John Piper, Don't Waste Your Life. Incredibly formative for me, and just kind of like casting a vision, not just for what I was going to do in the next 5 years in university or in graduate school or something beyond that, but just kind of like when I got, just kind of projecting forward to like when I get to my deathbed, like what will the purpose of my life have been, and aspiring to do more than just simply aspire to the American dream of a sweet family and a white picket fence, which ironically we live in a white house. But that was really formative in me pursuing a career in medicine. And the missions that we have done together, even just as Philip and I project our lives and futures. And it was actually something that I think really bonded us over just saying, you know what, we really want to serve Christ in our life, and it's not about just seeking the human comforts and accomplishments and just designing our lives to work hard, then retire, collect beaches on the sea, on the seashore, that we want to be engaged in missions for the entirety of our lives.
Absolutely.
So that was actually, that's funny. It all kind of overlaps in the time that I was a senior in high school. Philip was in the Pacific Northwest. And
the Lord knew she needed this book in this time so we can meet.
We actually bonded over that book. So anyways.
What was the name of it and the author again?
John Piper. He has a lot of books. I've read many of them. I find him really, really compelling.
Don't Waste Your Life by John Piper. He comes from a Calvinist background, so some of his books, maybe some people might feel like push in a different theological trajectory, but most part, it's very good content. Really like it a lot.
Yeah.
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 Hey, I want to just tell you guys that my favorite movie of all time was Braveheart. All time. For so many years.
Phil, I think you're showing your age when you said that. Because that's my dad's favorite film.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh man. Okay, it's true. I'm 33 and you all are in your 20s still. Oh man.
Yeah.
What about a favorite movie for you guys? And then we want to hear some of our listeners' favorite books and films before we get into some of the questions about theology and the sermons.
Paddleton is probably my favorite film right now.
Oh,
Not the one, not Paddington with the bear. Paddleton.
Oh, because
The Netflix original. Yeah, no, you thought that everyone thinks the bear. No, Paddleton. It's a very good movie. I think I remember.
Paddleton.
Yeah,
Never heard it.
it's with the guy from That's So Raymond.
I thought you said Hamilton, like the Broadway.
Oh no, I'm not that
Oh,
cultured.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
good
think
too.
that was really good too.
I saw someone write Les Miserables in their
Beautiful.
comments, and I can't remember who it was, but I absolutely love that. I know that it was a Broadway and things, but the most recent film I watched, and I memorized all the songs, everything. It's just beautiful. It's such a beautiful story.
Yes, totally agree. I cried at the end of reading the abridged version of Les Miserables.
Smart.
That was phenomenal.
Yeah.
The big one is over, I think, 1,200 pages. The one I read was 400 pages.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
And I
That's
watched it.
awesome.
I don't really read, so.
So confession here. My favorite movie of all time, I watch once a year with my mother. Pride and Prejudice.
Oh,
Oh,
Really?
that's sweet.
Really? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. The Keira Knightley version though.
Oh, I
Not the 8-hour movie.
Jane Austen. Oh my goodness.
I concur.
I
That's
I like those old school
He does.
films. I really do. And then I like even the older religious movies. So I see Joseph Mann. He just commented the 10 Commandments.
That's really good.
Oh, yeah,
That's the Mel Gibson one.
Yeah.
Is that that one?
Yes.
Charlton Heston.
That's
It's
classic.
Charlton Heston, right? Right,
Charlton
Joseph?
Heston.
Okay.
That's like old school. I
Those are
love
great.
those.
Those are great.
Hey, so let's chime in to see what some of our viewers here like. This. Someone said they love The Chosen. Yes, I am totally with you. That's
Very
a
good.
phenomenal new series that came out. If you haven't watched The Chosen, it's the first ever docuseries done on the life of Jesus, and it's the first major crowd-funded production on it. So this is a fantastic one. I would
It's
encourage.
incredibly well done.
Yeah.
It is just so compelling. My
Yeah.
goodness.
You can download the app, The Chosen, to watch it. So please do take a look at it. What are a few others you're seeing here, guys?
I'm combing through right now.
Looking at
Okay. David Smith, you always have a creative thing to say, man. I got to read this one on 212. He says, in Jerry Maguire, Tom Cruise is treated as the returning prodigal son when Renee Zellweger says to him upon hearing he may I come home plea, just shut up, she tells him. You had me at hello.
Classic line.
That's a classic line. Josh and Emma are like, I don't know that movie.
Yeah, no, that,
Ooh, right over.
no, that's a famous line in cinema.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Looks like we got some authors here. Grace says Philip Yancey, Morris Venden.
Oh, Philip Yancey, yes.
Yeah.
Great author.
Those are classic.
Karen says The Sound of Music.
Of course, The Sound of Music. I
I've
love
never
that.
watched that. Yeah. So I'm sure it's good though.
Missing out.
Tommy.
Still-
You have to educate yourself. You have to watch it.
I don't know. I am Gen Z. I don't know. So figure it out.
Oh, man. Sylvia says 15 Minutes Alone with God by Emily Barnes. I like that.
I haven't
And
heard that.
Kevin
Read that.
Gray, Inner Game of Tennis by Timothy Galloway, applicable to all aspects of life. Ooh, I'll have to look that one up.
That sounds interesting.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for kind of participating with us, viewers. We're going to jump into some questions that we have prepared. And to start us off, Josh, you just did in the pop-up some original music. You've been writing original music for a long time, but in particular, this latest song that you released on today's pop-up experience with Anthem. And our viewers, if you haven't watched that, feel free to go back to the videos section on YouTube, and you can see the sermon that Pastor Randy did there and the original music that Josh is writing with the team. Josh, that song in particular that you wrote, talk to us a little bit about it. Why did you write it? What does it mean? The church stepping out. What's going on with that one?
Yeah, well, we went full time, and we started a series called 7. Pastor Randy talking about the church stepping into the mission of God, and so we wanted to kind of encapsulate that in the song, and so this kind of song was born about the church stepping out beyond the walls. How are we the church beyond the walls of the church? You know, that's where a lot of, the meat of our walk with Christ happens, one-on-one with community, and fighting for those who can't fight for themselves, fighting for the weak.
Wow.
I'm trying to remember the last lines of it. Yeah, and just bringing the fight. We're bringing the fight out. The church, we have fight. There's power. There's power in the community of the body of Christ, and we want to bring that power. We want to bring it out. We want to bring that fight out. And so, yeah, that was kind of just, we wanted to encapsulate a song that really kind of related to Randy's message, and so that was what was kind of born out of it.
And now talk to me about this notion that the church is beyond the four walls. Sometimes we envision the church, and I'd love to hear from all of you guys, actually, this idea that the church is within a space, a building. And during COVID, churches were closed. And for many people, honestly, church was closed, period. There was nothing. What are you getting at, Tommy? And what do you guys think just about that idea in general, that we're breaking out of the walls of just the church space?
Yeah, I'll brag a little bit about my dad's church for a second, right? So all the churches shut down, everything shut down because of COVID. And then my dad's church, he's the young adult pastor at New Haven SDA Church. Anyways, they got a call, and the local government had asked their church, and they said, "Hey, can you guys please not shut down completely? We know we've asked churches not to meet, but we hope that you guys can still be operational because of everything that you guys are doing to help the community." So my dad's church does like thousands of pounds of food. I think like 40,000 pounds of food a week to feed low-income families. They house homeless people at their church, and they're always trying to like subsidize. And so I think that's an aspect of, we're stepping out just from meeting every morning, Saturday morning, maybe 2 services. We're taking it beyond that. We're saying throughout the week, we're going to care for our community and help better our world. So I think that's an area where you kind of step out past the 4 walls.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we're seeing that more than ever now because of COVID. I think that we used to say that we need to bring church outside of church. Like, we are the church, we're the people is what make church. But it was really hard to envision that because you only see these people every Sabbath. They come in, they get their fill of, community and worship service and preaching, and then they're out. And then you don't see them again for another week. And everyone gets busy with their own lives, with their jobs and everything. But when everything shut down, I think it made it really obvious that, like, wow, okay, so we can't meet like we used to before. And that used to be good enough, but now it isn't because it's actually illegal. So what are we going to do now as a church to help others? And I've seen you reach doing Meals on Wheels and other things in the thrift store, which is awesome. But we really have to be creative and not, online services are great, but I think also, what are we going to do to step out? And like that book, from Bob Goff, Love Does, what's that action that we're going to take to be able to make a difference in other people's lives and bring the church to them instead of waiting for them to come to our church.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I love that. And Deb Weber, she kind of comments and says that very same thing you just mentioned, Emily. we need to be doers of the word, not hearers only. So since the churches have been closed from the virus, we should be going out and outside, helping the homeless, the hungry, the thirsty, spring of God's word. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big thing in terms of just recognizing the church, the ecclesia in the Greek. It was a notion of the people. It never was an entity of a building. Buildings do represent so much, places in the world, places in history, places that we go to, and it has so much meaning to it. But I think if we're going to get back to what Jesus envisioned, I mean, I'm with you guys. It's got to be a recognition. It's the people of God going somewhere, doing something for the community, for the world. You know, I think of, honestly, I really do think of our first responders in this pandemic, our hospital workers. I know I'm sitting next to one. Everything closed. They had to go in every day still. Emily, you as well. You didn't have to go.
They're online. It's okay.
Okay.
They're on Zoom.
Okay. But I mean, you know, she's pregnant and she's still having to love on people and give of herself, you know, when many people are like, I'm going to stay home and be in the background. You know, that I think is the space that the church needs to get to calling itself then essential.
Exactly.
You know, otherwise we'll be the non-essential because we're not doing anything in the midst of this. I don't know what you guys think about that, but
definitely.
Yeah.
And I think that also it's not just, you know, going out and feeding the homeless, even though that is necessary. It's doing small things too. Like what can you do in your community right now for one family, or, you know, like Tommy and I were talking about, like, well, how can we help low-income families maybe in the future? And, you know, homeless people have a lot of resources too. And so but there are some people that fall through the cracks, that they don't qualify for welfare, but they also don't make enough to feed their family every month or pay a bill or something like that. So how can we help in those kind of ways? And it might be scary right now to just fully immerse, go out to the street, you know, go in the heart of San Bernardino, maybe start with small steps, something that's an attainable goal, you know, that still makes a difference.
Yeah, I love that. Hey, now if someone is, for instance, maybe not churched, they're not going to church regularly. Hi.
Hi, Petra.
She's wanting to say hi to everyone. Someone who's not church, kind of watching and saying, yeah, what have you guys done?
Yeah.
You've really, I mean, they've kind of said your vision of what your purpose is pretty lame, maybe, if you're not doing anything right now. This is when the church should be stepping up its game. I like what Joseph Mann just kind of wrote. If the local church is not operating outside of the four walls, it's not a church. It's a refrigerator freezer. Oh, man, Joseph calling us out. Broadcast ministries, community services, communication systems, and more, all ways in which to really touch people when they, where they are hurting most. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that, like, even though there's that, you know, that age-old saying, I don't actually really that's not an age-old saying, but the whole idea that when you know, if your church were to all of a sudden disappear, would the community know? And I think that even though you hear that a lot, that I think there's so much truth in that. If we were all of a sudden to just up and disappear, would it even matter? You know, would it matter? And I think that's such a simple way to gauge whether you are a church that is a church beyond the walls, or whether you're a church in the walls only, kind of thing.
Yeah.
If we did a little poll, I guess, if anyone wanted to be honest with us, if your church shut down today, would your community feel it? Would they know? Would they feel like something's missing? I'd love to hear from our viewers what they think about that.
Yeah, and it's so, you know, I love the church. I just moved here from a church up in Vancouver, and I love they had an amazing it's called Acts of Kindness, and they would, I think it was like about once a month or so, they would give away a car to a single mom in need.
That's awesome.
They'd get cars that would come in. They had a 4-bay garage in their church, church members, a lot of mechanics, they would give their time to fix these cars up, and then they'd give them away to someone in need. They would choose a family in need, in the community who was going through a hard time. Maybe the dad had an injury, wasn't able to go to work, and they were struggling, and they would send them away for 2 weeks away from their home, and they would remodel their whole house, renovate their home. Hundreds of thousands of dollars poured into this family, and all that was community. The community would come together and donate. The Home Depot down the road would donate supplies, and it was just, it's just this church was beyond the walls, no doubt. That's what that church was known for in the community. Was, oh, you're the Acts of Kindness church. You're the church that renovates the homes for the family that's on the news. The evening news, we saw that. And there's just, I think that's so special when a church is just known. That's really what they're known for is being a church beyond the walls. So I think that's really cool.
I wonder about some churches that, are a little bit too small to feel as though that they're making a big impact. And I wonder how someone would speak to a church like that so that they wouldn't lose heart. Because I think of some of these small churches, and it's like your church as a whole doesn't have to be doing a lot, but you as an individual church member could be doing something that would put, quote unquote, the church on the map, because it's the people of God doing something. So it's the small things, I think, like one of you said, that makes an impact. And so don't get discouraged if you feel as though your church isn't doing much right now. You're not necessarily the Acts of Kindness church, in BC, but you can do something for people. And I think that's the call of every believer. What can I do to be the light of Christ in this area and place? Yeah.
Totally.
Well, I want to jump to a different question. If someone, for instance, is an unchurched person and not going to church, or maybe not even a religious person in the sense they don't know a lot about spiritual things, why would church, or why should they even care about church?
Well, Pastor Phil, I think they probably shouldn't care about church. I think the church should be caring about them. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
No, but I think that's sometimes part of our problem. Not everyone's, but some people's, is that we think like, oh, we have to make them care about us or attract them. I think if you frame it more towards what are we doing to serve them, or what are we doing to care about them or help them, and just like Josh was talking about with this past church, all that great stuff. Though if we aim to do those kind of things, I think that's probably more the focus.
Yeah. And going off what Tommy said, I think that there's this, people, I think deep down inside, people care about people. When someone comes by and they see a church that's reaching out and that's caring for someone, someone can't help but say, hey, yeah, I can get in on that. That's easy for me to get in on, And I think that needs to be the basis. That needs to be where we start. Is, what we want to love people. We want to directly impact someone's life today in a real, tangible sense. And I think that someone coming off, the street or wherever, you can't not get on board with that. That's I think simple love. And so I think that kind of goes, with Tommy, what you're talking about. The church, we need to care about people. It goes back and forth. When we begin to care, they begin to care. So it's this kind of symbiosis, if I'm using the term correctly.
Never heard that word before.
I'm sure it's a real word. No, I agree with Josh.
I think of that beautiful quote by Ellen White. I found it here. I want to read it to you guys, and I just kind of play with this a little bit, but it says, Christ's method alone will give true success in reaching people. The Savior mingled with people as one who desired their good. He showed his sympathy for them and ministered to their needs and won their confidence. Then he bade them, come and follow me.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, it's hard to argue with Jesus.
Or Ellen White.
Yeah.
I think also, Ellen White says there that we just need to love other people, and that's our duty. And I think that's what says the Bible too. Yeah. So when we come in and make it our duty to tell people what they need to wear and what they need to look like and what they need to act like before they really even stepped into the church, that's where we're going wrong. And it takes me back to a story that my dad used to tell me about my uncle. He came into church one day back when they were younger, and he was a bit of a rebellious kid. So he came in with leathers. He was riding his motorcycle. And of course, it's a conservative Seventh-day Adventist church. One older lady came up to him and said, "I don't ever want to see you step foot into this church dressed like that again." And he never went back to church. So he's like, "You know what? Fine. You won't ever see me because I'm not going to come back." And so that really hit me hard, growing up. And I always thought that that was wrong, and that way, and people don't know any better too. But I think that when we're taking it upon ourselves to make that call and to take that responsibility, that really is, we need to leave that in God's hands and just love other people and let God do the rest of the work. I think that's something that people might feel more inviting and be unchurched when they walk by a church and they're just welcomed, or when a friend brings them in and they're dressed in jeans and whatever, maybe their shirt's torn or something, and we welcome them in. That makes a huge difference too.
I agree.
Love that. I love that. I really appreciate that. Hey, now if someone were to then kind of ask what Petra's got something to say here for a minute.
She's a preacher.
If someone were to ask, what does it mean? Okay, she's gone. She's gone.
I agree, Petra. It's that time. It's that time of.
Oh man. Pastor Randy talked about this idea of stepping into God's mission. What does it mean for someone to take a step into God's mission as a disciple?
Say that one more time, Phil.
Yeah. What does it mean to take a step into God's mission as a disciple of Jesus?
Well, I'll start since I have something to say.
Go ahead, Pastor.
So I think that what it means to take a step into God's mission is, like we've always been saying, to love other people, right? But that can manifest in different ways. That can look different in different settings as well. And so, I think everyone has a coworker or a boss or someone that they might not get along with. And so those simple steps of asking God to give you the strength to be merciful and to be loving and to show kindness, even when that other person may hurt you or may make you feel stupid or something, I think is huge, because then all your other coworkers or all your other people that you're around are getting mad and angry, and you're praying for this person, that you really stand out. And they're like, what is wrong with you? What do you have that I don't? How are you not concerned about this, or mad about this, or taking it out on other people, or wanting retaliation? How are you doing this? And it really is, it's our human nature to have retaliation, to feel mad, and to want to fight back. But with God's strength, we're able to just purely love, only with His strength, because I've definitely, not had that strength, and I needed to ask for it sometimes. So I think that in simple terms, it is to love other people. But what does that look like? You might need to show some mercy to somebody that you haven't been in the past, and that might need it. And then be patient with other people. And I think it's really how we treat others, because when people look at a church, they actually look at the members. They're not looking at the building. They're not looking at actual God Himself. They're looking at us to embody Him. And if we don't treat them right, or we don't do something that maybe God would want us to for them or anything like that, then they'll judge our church by our actions and what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. That's rich. I want to just kind of go back here just for a moment. Look at Christy Decker's comment on YouTube. If you're watching 237, She says, 12 years ago, I was told I wasn't welcome in church with a service dog. My husband had a stroke 23 years ago. He can't help me when I need it. I didn't attend services except online now.
Wow.
Oh, Christy, my heart goes out to you. I am so sorry for that. You know, that's a perfect example of when God's people are focused on the wrong things.
Mhm.
You know, our priorities are in the wrong place. Instead of saying, praise God, you're here, it's like, you know, I'm not even going to listen to your story of why you brought the dog. I'm just going to say you're not welcome. And I think that's the thing. We don't take the time to really get into understanding people's story.
Yeah.
If you knew the reasons why that guy came in tatted the way he was, or looked that way, or why they acted like that, or, you know, you would have a lot more empathy, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Exactly.
I'm so sorry about that.
Yeah, I think that, you know, like talking about God's mission, it's not a small mission. It's not small. You know, you look at, you know, Jesus' mission. You know, his mission was coming from where he came. You know, as the Son of God, he became a human. You know, that is a huge mission. Like, why he could have been, you know, no, those humans, they don't dress the right way. Those humans, they don't treat me the right way. They don't talk the right way. They don't drink the right stuff. They don't want, you know, I'm gonna, you know, I don't want, you know, but no, his mission was huge. He put all that aside. He came down and he loved us. You know, the God of the universe loved us. When you step into God's mission, he's not calling you to. It's not a small mission. It is a huge mission. And so when you start moving your mind into this big mission, all of a sudden it changes. You're not looking at little things when someone comes in and not dressed the right way. They have a service dog.
Yeah.
Your mind is in this bigger space where I believe where Jesus' mind and his perspective is at. You begin to kind of take on his perspective, and it's a big mission, and I think it's a big calling. And sometimes I think we dwindle that mission down to not, you know, we make it too small. It's, you know, but it's when you look at the mission of Jesus, it's huge. Nothing you can't comprehend. And so when you step into that, be ready for being uncomfortable. He's going to open your mind to things that you never thought. He's gonna, you know, maybe take your narrow perspective and go, whoa, I didn't see that. I don't feel comfortable. You know, it's because that's what Jesus did. You know, so
yeah.
Exactly right.
You know, I think of also the understanding that we wonder sometimes, God, what are you up to? What are you up to in this community? Where can I find the mission that you're interested in? I think one of those statements is just that, am I spending that time with God to hear his voice clearly speak? This is a place I see for you. So that's one. And then the other thing is, am I amongst the hurting, or am I just amongst those that I'm comfortable with? Because then I think you'll forget the real thing is, like, Jesus was amongst the hurting, amongst those who needed him. And so I think those would be two principles I would encourage anyone who's wondering, how can I get part of God's mission in my local community? Spend time with him, and spend time or find ways to be with the hurting in some way. Find the needs of people around you, and they might be your own church members or family members or neighbors, but that's what I would say. I don't know what you guys think. How can someone find God's mission?
I just want to say a quick thing before we move on to that, just because I want to say, you know, to the people that do focus on or have focused on in the past of if you're wearing earrings or not, or if what you're wearing or what you're not wearing, I think that we have to have empathy for them too, because they were raised in a state of fear. And so when they see that, it's like, oh my word, this was everything I was taught not to have happen. And we can't have the wrath of God come upon us. Or, you know, it's like my parents were taught that the angels, if they stepped into a bar, that the angels would leave them, their guardian angel would stay outside while they went in, you know? So that's what people are taught. And so of course they're scared. Of course they want to feel compelled to say something because they think that they're doing the best thing. And so I think that we do have to have compassion on them too, and be patient with them as well. And, you know, and we can always learn to live and grow in that way of just loving other people. But it is going to take some time. So if that has been you in the past, I encourage you to maybe step outside of your comfort zone. Talk to someone that doesn't look like you. You know, maybe ask questions. And like Phil, what you were saying is learn their story. Ask them what their story is, because that is the way that we're going to get connected to one another.
Good.
I also think that there's a reality that sometimes is forgotten, and that is this notion that the hurting will speak up for themselves.
Right.
That, oh, I'll see the hurt and I'll address it and I'll be able to help them. But the reality is, I think we just need to even maybe go a step further and just saying, I just need to be an intentional friend with people more in the world and just in general in the church. I think there's a lot of shallow friendships in churches, and sometimes we kind of put our mask on. Hi, happy Sabbath. How are you? Oh, good, brother. Good to see you, sister. Right? And it's the mask way of living church. And I think if we were willing to step into the reality of what it looks like to pull off the mask and to be vulnerable and to really know one another, we would be able to see the hurts that each of us bear, and speak into that. I know but I also recognize that sometimes you don't need to be vulnerable with everyone, but you need to be vulnerable with someone who is a believer. You can't just carry everything on your own. That's just another thought I had about that. But I want to kind of go back to the idea of an unchurched individual kind of looking at the church. If they were to look, if you could put your Petra's talking over here again. If you could put yourself in the shoes of someone who doesn't go to church very often, is kind of just a passive viewer of your community, what do you think they would say about the perceived mission of God as they view you doing church and life? Maybe more in a general sense as opposed to Loma Linda or some church you know of. But what would you say the unchurched individual kind of in general in society would say this is what's happening as kind of the mission of God that these people are on? What might they say?
So I want to clarify, Pastor Phil, you're wanting us to say what we think like an unchurched person currently thinks of church, or what we would hope they would think of church?
Let's start with the first one, and then let's get to the hope part.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm sure Emily has a lot to say on this part, but I'll briefly say something. My assumption is that, because I'm not an unchurched person, I go to church, but my assumption is that it's probably not in the best of light, at least within North America area. I think churches are often painted as, we can tend to be pretty bigoted, and we can tend to be pretty unwelcoming at times. And I think that's probably the broad idea of what people think of church. And I think that's the reality of it. But I think there's also, we can fix that, because people's perceptions are often shaped by how we treat them. But Emily, I'm sure you have a lot more to say, so I'll stop there.
I'll speak first. I do have an opinion, but all right.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, so I mean, I do have a lot of friends who don't go to church and grew up Adventist. I also have a lot of friends who grew up in the church and have stayed in the church, but don't really know the mission. And so they kind of they show up at church and they like to see their friends, and they really show up for their friends, which is part of church, but not all of it. But then they don't have like a life, and this used to be me too. They don't have a life outside of church involving God, I guess. And so it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's kind of this like stagnant, as God would maybe call lukewarm, Laodicea. But then you have the people, who don't go to church at all and they're atheists. And so, from just listening to all of them, they all have a collective kind of same answer of, church, like what Tommy was saying. Church is something where if I wear the wrong thing, I'm going to get judged. And if I bring my Starbucks cup in, then they'll know that I, especially on Sabbath, they'll know that I bought something on Sabbath, and they'll think of me as bad. And so it's really a place to just get judged. So when we have places that we know that we don't feel safe in, we tend to avoid those places. And I think that's just the human nature of us, And so if it doesn't feel like a safe place, of course I'm not going to go. And a lot of my friends, they've had terrible experiences at churches. And not saying everyone here, of course, but, maybe somewhere else. I haven't been here long enough to know that here, but so many churches, they have such good intentions, but then they just miss that mark of they think they're doing the right thing, and they're just, not the most welcoming ever.
I think Sue Schaller, forgive me if I pronounce her last name incorrectly, she says, I'm afraid they think our only interest is in evangelizing them instead of loving them, whether or not they come to church. And I think she hits a perfect point, is that I think a lot of times people might think that we just want to get them on our side. But I think the beautiful thing is, I'm switching to more of a hope thing now, is that whether you're churched or unchurched, life is pretty extremely lonely. It's pretty difficult. And most people don't have a lot of friends. And church is a beautiful environment if it's done properly, where people can come together and they can say, we're going to work together to do this thing that is outside of ourselves. So if that's, as Josh mentioned, caring for low-income families with cars, or something greater than myself, or God's placed on that church's heart to be wonderful advocates for mental health or something like that. It's a beautiful time for people to come together and say, we're going to come together, we're going to be a church, we're going to focus on this thing that's bigger than ourselves, and we're going to create lasting relationships in doing that. And I think if a church focuses on that, it's kind of hard to mess up, because you're working towards something that's so much bigger, so much broader than what's right in front of us at the moment.
Yeah, that's so good.
That's rich. That's rich, man. I appreciate that. I just want to read a few of these comments. I think they're really good. Starting with Monica Klein. She says, COVID-19 precipitates a state of survival. In this state of survival, it's hard to be in a place to seek out and to create service opportunities for yourself when you're not part of a large congregation who has the service opportunities. I found at their core, people want to do good, serve, and have compassion for those around them. When given concrete, easily accessible ways to impact, they will gladly do it.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Good. Yeah.
I think we also have to remind ourselves what the mission of God is too, because as much as we love ministry and we love serving people, we can get caught up in the service and in the programming and everything. And so we have to keep reminding ourselves too, what is the mission of God? And that's something that you can ask yourself every morning too, and recenter ourselves and say, all right, the mission of God is to love others, to serve people and do what Jesus did here when he was on earth.
Mm-hmm.
I think Phil, you're
muted, Phil.
There we go.
Not very good at this technology thing.
Sorry.
I want to read what Gabrielle Wagner says, because I think this would be an important one to kind of break down a little bit, especially coming from a younger generation to answer this. She says, churches are sometimes perceived as they are made up of small cliques.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just kind of the people who like themselves kind of stick together, and then they don't open themselves up to others.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? I think that's our human nature. So if you get a large group of people, like Loma Linda University Church is made up of a massive amount of members, right? And so when you get such a large church with a lot of members, then you're naturally going to go to people that you're like-minded, or that you have the same interests or maybe the same ethnicity. And so those aren't necessarily bad. The problem is when we form a clique and then we close the doors and say you can't come in.
Yeah.
So small groups, great. Small cliques, not great. So how can we go?
Open cliques.
Yeah, open cliques. I guess it's not the right word, but how can we go and Because everyone wants that sense of belonging too.
Yeah.
How good does it feel when you step into a church or step into a service or step into somewhere, a room, and everyone's like, "Hey, you're here, you made it." Oh man, that makes me feel so good, and it makes you feel wanted too. So how can we have that and have people that we know each other, we love each other, we're a part of something bigger, we have that sense of belonging, but that we still let other people in.
Josh, when you think about the creation of maybe Anthem and what you're hoping Anthem will become, how can people imagine and envision a space that is broken down into open cliques? I mean, how would that happen in a church setting? Like, honestly, because that's the difficulty. Someone walks in, they're like, "There's no one here that wants to get to know me or cares about me."
I'm not sure how that would go over well with marketing. The small groups, we'll change the name to Open Clicks. You either do really good or really poorly. I don't know. Yeah.
No more life groups. It's just Open Clicks.
Okay. Yeah. That's. I mean, that's. I think that's a tough one. I mean, I think that's what every church has always wanted. How do we become more welcoming? How do we become more inclusive? Like like I'm going to say, it's human nature to gravitate towards where you're comfortable, the people you know, and so it's one of those things. I think that it's a culture, it's a shift. It doesn't happen overnight, and I think that as leaders, it has to start with us, and it has to be something that you're constantly reminding your people who are involved. Hey, this is more than this is beyond us. This is beyond your friends, and this is something bigger. Like, I think it goes back to when you're talking about the mission of God, going back to that, how it's so big. When you talk to your lay leaders and say, hey, the mission of God is huge. It is huge. Jesus came down to this earth, and when you start talking to them about they have the opportunity to step into this mission and work hand in hand with God and the Holy Spirit, and things can happen here today. We're talking about maybe a Saturday morning. I think that people get excited when we get excited about the mission of God. I think we I want, and this word we have to sell the mission of God better.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we sell it as maybe it's kind of drab and dry and small.
Not exciting.
If I'm gonna be on this earth and be a Christian and be in that mission of God, this is something that I want to. It's big, it's exciting. It's going to change the world. We are going to change the world together. Do you want to change the world? And all of a sudden it's like, man, I feel it. I want to get on board with this mission. Let's go. Right?
Yeah, for sure.
To me, it's like there's power. Where's the power? We got to bring the power back and the excitement about walking with God, because walking with God is exciting.
Yeah.
Being in the mission of God is exciting. Reaching out to that person next to you. And I think when we start to view it in that sense, the person next to you who you're mentoring or leading, they're going to start going, man, yeah, I want this. Let's go. And something's going to start happening. And so that's just, I don't know. I think.
Yeah. I love that. I really like that. I kind of also see what Jack Cornwall here said, kind of going back to a previous comment we were making. He said, nobody was ever judged at Cheers.
I watched that show, actually.
Are you talking about the show? Yeah, I was just going to say.
Yeah, the show Cheers, and there's something to it. Here, there's this group of people that are friends. They go and meet at a bar, and they just talk about life. And they're real and they're honest. And I think the thing is, when you walk into a bar, people walk in without their masks. I think that's why it's so authentic and loved. Because it's like, I'm not going to judge you for what you've done, because I'm going to tell you also what I have done.
Right.
And where I've been. Just recently, I preached a sermon 2 weeks ago, and I confessed something up front. And I found myself just kind of bombarded afterwards by people. Pastor, thank you for sharing and being honest. Listen, this is what's been going on in my life. I had from this spectrum of people who were like, I'm struggling with addiction, to I'm being promiscuous in an affair. I mean, it was just like, whoa, the gamut of confession I experienced that night. And it was because I was willing to say the truth about something I had gone through. I think that's powerful, and I think that's real, and that's where then God can meet us,
Yeah.
and then we can then journey with other people likewise in that space, and get excited about being part of the mission of God, because it includes sinners like us.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like we're all sinners. We're all in that boat with you, and that we have a Savior who can do something beautiful with that state you're in and transform it. And then I think you can get excited and stoked about the vision Josh was just talking about.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
I
exactly.
agree.
yeah. Well, Josh, hey, and Emily, Tommy, leave us with just what is Anthem, who is it for, and when does it meet?
Yeah, so in a very basic sense, Anthem is a service of the Loma Linda University Church, a contemporary service, going to be happening at 10:30 a.m. on Saturday mornings in our brand new auditorium that's located right next to the sanctuary. And it's just a contemporary service, and we're excited to be launching here online. We just launched online here today, this morning. So if you haven't checked that out, go check it out on our channel, the LLUC channel. But all these things that we're talking about, you know, getting excited about the mission of God, you know, that's what Anthem, you know, in a basic sense is. We want to be excited about following in the steps of Jesus, following in the steps of the gospel, you know, and we're just excited. Obviously, with COVID, things have been weird. Online church has been a whole new endeavor we've been trying to figure out, but we're adapting, and God has been moving, you know, even online. And so, yeah, that's, you know, we're excited with what's happened here at Loma Linda.
Amen. Thank you, guys.
And the Anthem service, I just wanted to say too and clarify, is a multi-generational service.
Yeah.
So even though it's contemporary, you are not too old or too young to attend. It's just like a worship service that any age, anyone can attend if you want that more contemporary feel, and then get excited about the mission of God with us.
Yes.
Even Phil at old age.
Even though you can come, Phil.
Oh my goodness.
We'll have a Braveheart movie night one of these.
Oh man. Wow, you're terrible, bro. You're terrible. Well, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I thank you for your time. Those of you who are watching as well, what a blessing it is to have this online viewership. We're so excited for you to be part of this journey with us, even though we're not in person. We get your phone calls. We see all these chat comments, and we just want you to know we are for you. We're on your team. If there's anyone here today who's felt just hurt by church, I just want to say I am so sorry. Yeah. And my prayer, and I know the prayer of the rest of these guys, is just that God would reform and give you a heart to give it a second chance. And our prayer is, if you don't have a church family, we'd love to be that for you and with you and partner with you in this journey. So God bless you. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you again next week with Pastor Randy in another live Q&A.
All right. Bye.
See you later.